back to another episode of Beating Alpha. This is episode 165, and we have a very special guest on today. I'm very happy to introduce you to Omar L. Harris. So he's born in Pittsburgh, PA, and award-winning bestseller author of 4 books, including the Servant Leader's Manifesto, that's been written in 2020. Intent consultant, consulting founder, and former GM. Basically 20 years global pharmaceutical executive experience with Pfizer, Merck, Schering Plough. I don't know if I'm saying these names, right or wrong, but you maybe you can correct me sometime. So, as a Gallup certified strengths coach, business and leadership thought leader, motivational speaker, and entrepreneur, so Harris is passionate about leading teams, high performance coaching, and inspiring future leaders today and tomorrow to adopt the servant leader mindset and stop toxic leadership behaviors. That is awesome. Besides, based on building his performance organizations on 4 continents with corporate startups and entrepreneur endeavors. So he's now 4 books, including, as I mentioned, the Servant Leader Manifesto and all of that great stuff. And a few things to mention besides that, he plays 7 instruments, speaks 5 languages, lived and worked in 4 continents, and started his first business at the age of 7, which is pretty ridiculous, But look, it's fascinating. So again, definitely get in contact with Amar himself on a personal level, which is going to be LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and all these links and the rest of the bio. It's going to be included in the show notes. So make sure to get in contact with them. And personally, Omar, just want to say again, big thank you for coming in to the show today. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Very happy to be here. Look forward to talking.
Thank you. Thank you. Again, before I started recording this, as I mentioned, there's a lot of uncertainty, people losing focus and, clarity, what to do next for the future. So having a person just like yourself on today on the show, I think will give a lot of guidance and that clarity that's very needed, in these times. So I appreciate you coming over.
No
So
problem.
again, one thing I want to ask you, because that stand out for me the most, that as I mentioned, like 7 years old, like what type of business, somebody can create at the age of 7?
So, very opportunistic business. We were living on a public golf course, and a lot of the golf balls would end up in our backyard. And we realized that we could probably sell golf balls. But golfers always need more golf balls, right? They need more balls. So basically, we created a small little stand, and we started selling golf balls back to golfers on the course. So basically, had a little stand right by my backyard. We would collect the golf balls from everyone's backyards, and we would resell them back to the golfers. So like the colored balls, which are more valuable, we sold them for like 25 cents, and like the white balls sold them for 10 cents. And we funded our entire summer escapades at the swimming pool, and hamburgers and hot dogs and French fries for the entire summer off of that business. So yeah, it was the first attempt at trying to identify an opportunity and then take it into execution.
Hmm. That's very interesting. So, I mean, like I'm looking to discover that because, you have those people on talking via social media, and like half of those people, that I came across through social media, they're talking about, okay, to be a successful entrepreneur, just like like if you're doing something on that level, like, and you have kind of intuitive, mind, and, you think, okay, I can make some money with this, like at the age of 7, because I know there's not a lot of people who are doing these type of things at that age. So what do you think? Is there a special gene that you're born with, or you think everybody can become a successful entrepreneur?
No, I think entrepreneurship is in everyone's blood, just like everyone has a book in them. I think everyone has a business in them. I just think people they undervalue what they're good at consistently. And I think that because we get lazy working in corporations a bit, so we don't see that how our function could actually turn into a business sometimes, and we don't think outside the box and broader enough. But really, business is a school. Like, you're working for a corporation, they're paying you to learn how things work, and you can take that information and apply it as long as you understand. If you have an eye for the problems and the pain points that businesses are suffering through, then somebody has to solve that stuff. And there's a million agencies that are out there solving problems that businesses have that they can't solve themselves. So I think that that's really just being observant and being, really being willing to take the risk. I think a lot of people are risk averse, so it makes it hard to be an entrepreneur if you have a a low risk tolerance. I think you have to have the ability to go out there and kind of like stand on your own 2 feet and really believe you can make something happen. And whether you succeed or not, you're going to learn. And I think that's really the most important thing is it's not about that every idea is going to be the big idea, but you will learn and continuously grow and improve. I mean, I've had since the age of 7, I've launched 7 companies in that time, in the time span from 7 to now 43, and I've learned with each iteration, and each one has made me much more prepared for the next venture that I've tried to take on. This is outside of the work in corporations for 20 years.
Okay, got it. So now you opened up my head to all these different questions that I wanted to ask, because as you mentioned, like not knowing what skill set do you have, and again in the beginning stages, like like one of the skill sets which is very important in entrepreneurship, and maybe you will agree with that, is sales. So can you talk about how
Yes.
important that, is it like sales versus marketing, like in this day and age, because we live in a digital age? So is sales still important, or is it the marketing who comes first right now?
Well, I think now you're seeing integration because you're getting sales done through like different platforms. So like Instagram, through COVID, I've been going crazy buying stuff on Instagram ads that I just see, and I'm noticing the quality of these the quality of the advertisement, the quality of the sites is like wow, it's like somehow the quality got taken to the next level in the last 2 or 3 years. But I think messaging, it's all sales, whether it's a person selling or whether it's a platform selling. You have to learn how to connect with those individuals, learn what they're looking for, and figure out how to visualize it in such a way that it makes it attractive to that person, and also like right timing. So the thing about the internet is the ability to collate your interests and what you've been searching for and the cookies and all that stuff. And so it can get something right in front of your face at the right time when you're most likely to purchase a pair of new chinos, which is like I bought so many pairs of joggers over the last 7 months. I have joggers for the rest of my life because I got into a jogger thing, and so Instagram kept feeding me jogger ads, and I'm like, okay, well let me try this pair of joggers out. And so just it's amazing kind of how sales and marketing and the internet have all kind of kind of intertwined now to make it even much easier to target, to position and to message to customers today.
Got it. So what do you think, like individuals, that the ones that are looking to make that transition, going from a, so-called secure job, which is not secure right now during this time, because we have those
Yeah,
companies, 1920 is like closed almost overnight, and they're looking to make
yeah,
that shift into building their own personal business. Is that what they should
yeah.
be depending on, just marketing, or they should go and acquire some, like real life skills as well, like just sales?
Well, I think you have to take a personal inventory of what you're good at. So I think that you need to understand what you're building it off of. So the foundation of whatever you're building is going to come from you, right? So that's whatever you're good at. If you're analytical, or if you're good at communication, or if you're good at relationship building, if you're good at getting things done, that's going to be your bedrock. You're going to need to build a team. I mean, you have to, it's and not everybody's going to be someone you pay for, but you're going to need to get a network around you to help you be successful, because no one does anything on their own. So you need to get mentors, advisors. You need to get people, suppliers, things of that nature that are going to help you kind of put the pieces together. I don't think you should be afraid to. Let's say you're an engineer and you want to start a salon, right? Do you need to learn about? Of course, you need to learn everything about like taking care of hair and beauty and all that type of stuff. But you don't need to become a sales and marketing expert. You just need to know the ins and outs of your business and take whatever you're good at and apply that to that business. We're all uniquely special in different ways, and we have to build on top of what we're naturally good at, and not worry. And we can always outsource in the areas that we're not so good at. If it's sales and marketing or whatnot, you can always find professionals who are experts in that area. I mean, for example, myself right now, I'm about to launch a new technology platform for inclusion in corporations. And where I'm good at is the operations and the back office stuff and building the vision and the plan. But I know that I'm going to need business development people working with me. I'm going to need technical developers with me, web developers, back end, front end, a programmer. So all those things are going to have to be outsourced. But I know that I'm building from a bedrock of my own capabilities, which is where everything needs to start from.
And I love the fact that you're doing that, because there's a lot of people, I think it's very important for them to hear that, because, the individuals who are looking to get started their own personal business, and maybe they're not going through the same story as being 70 years old and starting, business at that age. And it's kind of, maybe they're 25 or 30 and it's a first business that they're starting. They're going to be afraid about, leveraging, other people experience, because they never had that before.
Right.
They're never going to be trusting those people. They will know process of, hiring people. And first of all, they will be scared of spending their money. They will
Yeah.
be like, I'd rather, spend, a few bucks, on a course that I can and do kind of try to do everything by myself, which is the biggest mistake, right? Try to do everything by yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you don't get over yourself and really build a team, you're not going to succeed in any entrepreneurial endeavor. You can't do it all by yourself. There's no example in history of anyone building a successful business all by themselves. I mean, you had to get the right people on board to make it happen. I know people have a lot of fears about, oh, they're going to steal my idea, they're going to do this, they're going to do that. I think you have to just push. There's a lot of ways to protect yourself in that way. You have NDAs, non-disclosure agreements. You have different things. If you're really worried about people taking your ideas, I tell people ideas are a dime a dozen. It's execution that matters. I mean, I can tell you the idea for my company right now, and we can start at the exact same point, and what's going to be produced will be completely different because you and I are not the same people. So execution is the difference in the end, and persistence and intent is the difference in the end, not just the idea. People get too wrapped up in ideas, like, oh my God, I have this brilliant idea. No, the idea is worth, that idea plus $5 will buy you a cup of coffee at Starbucks. It's worth nothing until you put it into actual practice.
Exactly. And that's the key. So I love that you said that. Yeah. So the execution versus, having a plan and, thinking
Yeah.
about this kind of, if the person is starting, it's a brand new business. They never did a business before and it's a first business. I don't think that you will have some sort of a genius idea. And you think like, maybe you think personally that it sounds very genius like, but I'm sure you heard that maybe from somebody else and it's through personal experience that it combined and it took you like, so it's not going to be anything unique because everything that we have around us, it's pretty much created, so
Yeah.
the businesses that are new businesses are coming up, they're just trying to do what other businesses are currently doing as well. Maybe better, maybe from different angle, but it's already there pretty much. So,
Exactly. It's
but
all.
one thing that I wanted to ask you, because you mentioned the big part of the business success depending on the people that you know as well and who knows you, and that's through networking and making those connections. So what about the people that kind of feel left over and those people, like introverts, they're like, I don't know how to talk with people. Like, what's your advice to those?
I would say partner with an extrovert. So I'd say, once again, like you do what you do and let someone else do what they do. So I've seen very successful partnerships where the one partner is more intellectual, introverted, introspective, and the other person is more outgoing and more gregarious. And so you just join forces. You find that one person, you do it because they can't do what you do and you can't do what they do. Like, for example, Steve Jobs and Woz in Apple. That's a classic combination. I don't even know how many people have ever heard Woz speak. You never hear the guy speak. We all used to hearing Steve Jobs speak. So that's the classic example. Steve Jobs would not have Apple without Woz. Woz without Steve Jobs would have given the entire company away at a hobby shop in '83. So they needed each other to really create something really special. And I think that it's the recognition that you don't have to be great at everything and that you do need other people. That's the most important aspect of entrepreneurialism is finding that, Guy Kawasaki, who also is an Apple evangelist and, one of the main investors behind Canva, he talks about finding a first follower. So you don't have a good business idea until you have a first follower, someone who believes as much in your idea as you do, and they're willing to come on board to join you. That's what everyone needs to look for, that first follower. Pitch your idea and see who gets excited about it and then try to bring them on board. And then you build it one person at a time like that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah. So that's a very great advice. So the thing that I want to ask you, because if we're talking about finding right partner that it can leverage hers or her personal skills, let's say if it's talking with people and making those connections, like can you
Yeah.
talk about the potential partner vetting process and how do you know if you find the right person or not?
Well, as someone who has had great partners and someone who has had absolutely horrible partners in my entrepreneurial past, I would say that uh, there's two things I would say about this. The first one is it's like any other relationship. It takes time to understand. So what you think of the person day one and what you learn all across the journey is going to be very different because you're going to go through lows and highs, and you're going to learn a lot about your partners. It does take a lot of patience to not throw the baby out with the bathwaters, to use an American phrase. I mean, you have to be patient and remain steadfast to the mission at hand, and make sure you and your partner are on the same page. I had a partner in an earlier entrepreneurial venture, and this individual happened to be significantly older than I was. And so his whole thing with the business was he wanted to sell the business. My whole thing was I wanted to build a business. And so when someone wants to sell a business, someone wants to build a business, you're never on the same page. And the moment I identified that we had uh, this gap, I should have gotten out, because I think that that's the kind of thing where you're not aligned, you're not going to be able to make. You have to have the same, at least basic plan and vision together in order for you to make it work. So I think that the partner vetting process is, you have to understand what's most valuable to you. For me, and I do this in large corporations, and I do it on a smaller scale as well. The thing that I need for anybody who works with me is what's called the whom. And I wrote about this in my first book, Leaderboard, the DNA of High Performance Teams. So when I recruit people or when I look for partners, I want to make sure they have a similar level of work ethic as myself. We have a shared passion for what we're doing. We're both optimists, and so we're solution oriented, and we're mature enough to handle inevitable disappointment when it comes up, because you're gonna disappoint each other, you're gonna have miscommunications, you're gonna have things that happen along the way, and you need to be able to be mature enough to confront those issues head on, give the feedback, deal with them, and then and then move on. The other thing you have to realize whenever you do have your partners is, any group that forms to do a task is going to go through four stages: forming, storming, norming, and performing. And you can't skip the stages. It's a psychological, scientific fact that you're going to pass through these four stages, which is the formation of the group. Then it's going to be, okay, we disagree on how we're going to achieve the goal. Then we finally agree with some norms, and ultimately we get down to business. And so you can't skip steps. So when you're storming, you need to know what the right things to do are to get past storming and get to norming. When you're norming, you need to avoid that false harmony and get to having, really the tough, productive conflicts that will get you to high performance.
Okay, got it. So again, could you personally talk with a lot of businesses, and I'm guess a lot of those businesses are developed and young businesses. So what do you see through your personal career that kind of makes a difference into startups for the people who are looking to build their own personal businesses, and maybe let's say they already have a few people that they're working with as a partners and employees. So what differentiates those people who become successful as a startups? Because there's 99% of those who fail. So what
Yeah.
differentiates the successful versus the one that fails?
So I think the first thing is that founders need to recognize that they're not leaders. A founder is not a manager, and a founder is not a leader. A founder is someone who had inspiration and has a magnetic ability to get people together to go on the journey. But they need to recognize, I talk to founders all the time who have no idea how to create culture. They have no idea. They've never read any of the business books. They don't know any of the management science. They're just kind of like fumbling around in the dark around how to deal with people, how to deal with humans, and and get the most out of humans to drive a task. So I think your own leadership acumen. John C. Maxwell talks about the law of the lid in one of his books, and what that means is you can only lead people to the degree that your leadership lid. So think about a hat. Like if you can only lead people underneath the lid of that hat. So if you're 4 feet tall, you can only lead people who are 3'11" and shorter than you. If you're 8 feet tall, you can lead people who are 7 foot. So you need to raise your lid and capability constantly as the organization progresses. You cannot stay static, because you're not prepared for all the things that are going to happen in the course of a business. You have to be someone who researches and reads and continuously develops, more so than as you're developing the product, you have to develop yourself. And I think that's the main area that the founders flounder in, is they put all their effort into the product and whatever they're building, and they don't build themselves. The business scales, and then they find themselves unable to actually engage the new business that they built. Because you can have a sensational product, but if you are not really understanding your role, going from founder to leader, if you're not making that transition, then your business likely will fail, no matter how good your product is.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of great leadership examples, like the one that you mentioned with with the Steve Jobs and Bill Gates, and there's plenty of them, that having those kind of leadership, qualities, and we see those people, sometimes from afar, and we think like, there's some sort of a special people, we cannot do things like that, we cannot build companies of that size. So, but what does it take for somebody? Because you kind of mentioned about, learning more and educating yourself more, reading books, going seminars, doing whatever it takes to kind of, get that lit up. So basically you can get more quality people, under that umbrella. So, but what will be kind of the main key points, to focus on besides, focusing on yourself in the team to make sure that you can build that culture?
So like I said before, I think that, you really have to prioritize hiring. One of the other major mistakes that founders make is they don't like interviewing, so they get out of it as soon as possible. So as soon as they have someone on their team who likes that job, they get away from it. And I think that's the first mistake you make, is the culture of the organization is coming from you. So you need to have a deeply personal interest in each individual who comes aboard your organization. And if from a scaling perspective, you can't physically interview everyone coming in the door, then you need to have a process that ensures that the kind of people you want are in the business. For example, I told you about my whom. So I've done this at scale with 800 people. You didn't get in the door if you didn't have the whom. And I've done this small right now when I'm recruiting, technical developers. They have to have the whom. And that's a framework that I've created that I can, that works without me being in the room. Anybody can apply that process to make sure that we are sourcing the right kind of people, getting the right people into organizations. So you have to think through what matters to you. For me, I always say, think beyond pedigree and think beyond like whatever the person's, previous company was, because that doesn't mean that's not necessarily indicative of their future success. I found that some of the smartest people in the world are really terrible on teams. So they're really good individual contributors, but they're horrible when you put them around a group of people. And so I would rather have someone who maybe didn't go to Harvard, but was a better collaborator. We're going to get more done, is what I'm trying to say. So I think that you have to think about your own values, what matters to you. Think about the personality of the product that you're building, and really think it through in the beginning stages. So I do a lot of consulting now for startups and for actually investors. They want me to come in and help these founders create this structured culture so they can scale appropriately, because it's not something that they know. They've never learned these things. So I think that it's very important.
Got it. So one of the things that stood out as well, it was you talking about basically working with these teams, and a lot of that is the problems that arise, in that kind of leadership and that, culture environment, is there's a lot of toxic things that are happening there as well. So maybe you can, give a story, of course, without, mentioning the names of maybe, the company that you worked previously before, and, what was happening there, and how how you've been able to turn that around.
So I think a good example is a small startup. You have it's typical of founders that they have big egos, and ego is great for starting something, but it's not so great for sustaining something or building a high performance culture. And so with this individual founder, I really just had to break them down in terms of, what was in it for them. I'm like, listen, are you building this business because you want a yacht or like a plane, or what are you trying to achieve from building this business? Or are you trying to create meaning in the world? Because your product is very meaningful, but I see you kind of pursuing other interests. uh, and your people see the same thing about you. So really, you need to be connected to the customers and to the people serving the customers in your organization, and that should be all the fuel you need to keep going, as opposed to having people basically bend to your will and bend to your needs, and everyone kind of kissing up to you because you're the genius founder of this organization. And so I had to have some very blunt kind of conversations with that individual, and help them see that their behaviors were not actually going to build a high performance sustainable organization, and then ultimately whatever their materialistic goals were not going to be achieved for that very reason. So I said all this other stuff is a consequence of you serving the customer, and the founder must stay connected to the customer. You cannot allow yourself, with all the other things that happen during the expansion of an organization, you have to stay connected to the customer. That's the most important thing for you to do in order for you to remain humble and remain focused and keep your organization focused. The moment you take your eye off the customer is the moment the entire company begins to lose focus.
And that's one of the definitely ways that's going to work for you to keep customers retention, is if you just look at those customers or clients from a service standpoint, right? If you
Yeah.
keep it service oriented. Then again, you have the book which you wrote this year, The Servants Leaders Manifesto. So can you talk about that again, being in service? Or a lot of people talk about kind of famous saying, add value, or do those type of things to the client. So how is that important for the business, just to be in service, and how people can be more service oriented?
Well, I mean, I think that, so we've created a world where power is accumulated by very few people and rewards are accumulated by very few people, and there's a disconnect between those who are accumulating these things and those who are doing the actual work, and then ultimately the customer value that's basically given. Customer value is almost an afterthought or an accident, not something that's being happening on purpose. I mean, you look at an example like Uber, and brilliant idea, great execution actually, but had a toxic senior leadership culture that they're still trying to work through. There was a law passed in California on election day where Uber drivers are still treated like independent contractors. They get no benefits. They don't get any. They basically don't have any. They're not treated as employees, and that resolution passed. It just shows you how senior leadership at Uber thinks about their employees. I mean, so why would I want to drive for a company that doesn't care about my well-being at all? It won't even, well, I mean, Uber has billions of dollars, like a capitalization of in a 20 or $30 billion range, and they're concerned about providing health insurance for their drivers network around the world. I understand it's an expense, and I also understand that Uber ultimately wants to do driverless cars. So they really want to skip this whole driver phase and go to driverless car. But right now you have a workforce that can choose whether they work for you or Lyft or whoever else they can choose who they drive for. And you're taking it for granted. So you're basically in a situation where customers get I as a customer, I'm a bit disappointed in the company, and the workforce is disappointed in the company. So that doesn't bode well for your future success. So I think that that's where an example of how you have to reorient yourself. I think that the senior leadership at a company like Uber needs to reorient itself to drive the customer experience again. And it all gets filtered through their drivers. If drivers are unhappy or checked out, then the customers who are riding with them are not going to get a good customer experience. Just because you have the rating system is not enough to keep drivers in check. Because, okay, I get a 3-star rating, I'll just go drive for Lyft, or I'll just go drive for somebody else, or I'll start my own business and drive for myself. I mean, I don't need your technology anymore. So I think that that's the kind of example of a company that needs to reorient itself back towards the customer, and then those serving the customer, because that's when you begin to drive value back towards the customer, and you begin to reap the rewards of driving that value to the customer.
Beautiful. Okay. So again, another book that I wanted to be talking about a little bit, because you're a co-author on that one. It's called From Authors to Entrepreneurs' Fate. So can you talk
Yeah.
about that book? What's in the book? Because the title is very interesting. So can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, so in 2009, myself and two other authors decided to join forces to create a publishing company. And one of the ways you're talking about sales and marketing from our earlier part of the conversation, we created a blog where we basically we outlined our journey to publishing our first book. And that blog eventually turned into the book From Authors to Entrepreneurs because we wanted other, we identified a trend in that time where basically the ebooks were on the rise. Amazon was taking over the entire market from a reading perspective. And you no longer needed to go through a traditional publishing company to reach your audience. And so we were looking to inspire other writers to take their publishing destinies in their own hands and show them the process of how you can actually do this. It doesn't cost that much money, and you can be successful and have your dreams of being published achieved. And so the whole book is really from the point of the three of us, myself, Stephanie Casher, and James W. Lewis, as we talk about our journey to publish our first book, Sell Out, in June of 2010, and all the nonsense that ensues when three people try to come together and do anything. We went through a big storming phase, and we had all these issues, but ultimately we were able to publish that book, and the publishing company in the last 10 years has sold over almost 100,000 copies of our work, and we're a small independent publisher. So I think that our initial premise has proven to be true. Even though ebooks have swung back towards print, I still think that it's a really great, for me, having control over when I want to put my book out, having control over the marketing of my book and the communication of my book, and collaborating, and still being able to collaborate with very smart industry professionals in editing and cover design and all that kind of stuff. It's all at your fingertips now today. So why would I, if I have a few resources, why would I, give up points to a publishing company when I can take that on myself? I think once again, we talked about, people scared of being entrepreneurs. A lot of writers are scared of being entrepreneurs because they don't believe they have the marketing or technical acumen. You can outsource all that stuff today. Write a great book, and you can still publish it yourself and live off of your writing. Because what matters is still going to be the story and the quality of your writing.
Yeah.
But there are plenty of freelance professionals out there today that can help you get your work into the world. So that's what we were trying to do with Fate.
Here you go. Smart. That's a smart. Okay. So again, one of the things that I wanted to ask you, because you kind of mentioned that part, again, you said you got involved with this again at the time when the Amazon was kind of looking to take over, the book industry, and again, disrupt that. And, there's a lot of successful business people are talking about looking behind the corner before things are happening, just like Mark Cuban or other billionaires and millionaires. So can you talk about that? How people in this time, because there's already so many different things are created, just like Uber or technology companies and apps, and everything's just popping up every single day. How we can actually spot what's going to be happening behind the corner, and maybe not going to be the frontier into that action, but at least not get left behind.
Yeah, I think you have to look at what's happening, trends. I mean, like when something pops up, I investigate it just out of curiosity. So TikTok, I'm just like, man, what is this TikTok thing, and how are people utilizing it to make money? And when you look at it, it looks very frivolous. It looks like, okay, people dancing and doing like voiceover videos, but it's connecting, it's entertaining, and it's brand building. So and it's working. People are building huge platforms off of TikTok. Before that, I got obsessed with watching YouTubers like Lily Singh and others who have 17, 18 million fans following their channel on YouTube, and they're doing this in their homes, and you're seeing, and they build their own team, and they have a production quality, all the stuff, and you're watching this, you're like, okay, so what are the trends that are happening today? So you have to be able to spot trends, and really all to do is spot trends to see what all your friends are doing, see what everyone's doing. So what are they reading? What are they watching? What are they interacting with? That's called trend spotting. Then when you spot trends, kind of see who's taking advantage of the trends the best. And then in that space is where opportunity is there. That's where you're going to have the opportunity to kind of go in that same direction. direction or not. So you have to kind of be quick once you spot a trend to get out there and get in the wave before it's like surfing. The waves are not infinite. Like they crash. So you have to ride that wave and get good at trend spotting, getting on the board, riding the wave, getting off the board, trend spotting, riding the wave. That's the Gary Vee model. If you want to be, that's what he does. Is he's a brilliant guy at spotting these trends, and he has plenty of funding and resources to just jump on these waves. But you can do it at a much smaller scale today just by training yourself to spot. Don't just live and experience and be used by the trends. Observe the trends. Take a step back. For me, one of the things what I'm obsessed about right now is I don't know what Zoom did. I don't know how they did it. Every company has Microsoft Teams and Skype, and they already have a video casting solution. And somehow Zoom, when the COVID hit, took over webcasting because of the simplicity of their platform.
Yeah. Well, maybe they
Yeah.
had 2020 calendar. Who knows? I don't know.
Yeah, but talk about an ability to capitalize on a wave. Like Zoom, their market capitalization went up like 5,000% this year. Like they were just ready, and that's the kind of thing that the wave came to them, and they just got on the board and were able to ride it. But it's quite impressive when you see things like that. And I study those trends. I study the people who are successful in riding those trends, because I'm like, it's pretty impressive how they're able to do that. Then you have other trends like the PlayStation 5 just came out, and the console is gigantic. Have you seen this thing?
No, I
It's
have
huge.
not. Is it?
It's twice the size of the previous PlayStation console. And I'm like, why most technology is getting smaller? What does Sony know that we don't know? Why are they making a bigger thing that takes up more space in the house? What are their data scientists and their people telling them that made them go the other direction? Because I don't assume that they're stupid. I assume that they're smart. So there's something that they're playing towards. I don't know, but it's things like that I look at.
Wow. Yeah. So it's basically, yeah, it's the biggest of all that they created. Because I'm just looking at those now. Because I'm not a gamer, but yeah. So so there's a trend there as well with technology. And again, we were saying we don't know what's happening behind the scene, but that's something to be paying attention to.
Yeah, just watch it. I mean, there's a number of. I mean, right now so I'll give everyone listening one for free, which is, okay, we know that 2020 was the year of food delivery, was the year of food delivery services. I mean, basically, we all were sitting at home. We needed to eat. We didn't want to just go grocery shopping. So there's a trend there that's only going to expand further. And if you're an urban center, what about like meal prep services or packaging services or things like that to support this trend? So you have a trend of more people ordering out. If you investigate the business needs behind that trend, you look at packaging, you look at what is necessary to make that whole thing run. There are opportunities in that space to help businesses be successful and be even more successful in selling their services through these food delivery services.
Got it. Okay. And I love the fact that you mentioned about the YouTube when you gave out the example basically of these, kind of kids, because sometimes there are kids, like I think the biggest YouTuber out there, he does the toy reviews, and he's like 7 or 8. I mean, and making probably 20, 30 million, dollars a year. It's pretty insane, and of course they probably have a crew that does all of that kind of behind the scenes work as well. So yeah, but leveraging basically all these network, what you're saying, spotting trends like TikTok. So can we talk about a little bit more in depth, on a branding part? How is that important for people and businesses to be all over the place, maybe diversified approach and using all these different platforms?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to first understand that each platform is for different things, and you have to take the time to learn each platform. One of the great benefits of starting my own publishing company was our whole premise was we're going to be selling electronic books to people online. So we're not focused on physical bookstore distribution anymore. We're focused on driving people either to our website or to Amazon or to barnesandnobles.com, wherever the books are, to buy those books. So we had to get good at social media marketing. So that was, and at the time it was 2010. So Facebook was the dominant platform. So how do you market and sell on Facebook? Then you had Twitter was emerging at that time. You had YouTube, which was gaining steam at that time. And as time has evolved, now you're going into Instagram, you have WhatsApp, you have TikTok, you have and all Goodreads, which is the largest reader network on earth. So you have to investigate these platforms and really learn how to use them and understand you're going to make a lot of mistakes before you get it right. But that's part of the fun of being an entrepreneur is trial and error with low risk trial and error. Just learning for fun, figuring out what works, what sticks, what doesn't work. I mean, I can tell you right now for book publishing, nothing works but Amazon ads. So don't take your ads off of Facebook, take them off of Instagram, take them off of Twitter. Don't advertise books anywhere but Amazon. That's where the game is. Save your money because I've tried it all. Or you use the niche public book advertising sites, but that's it. Don't waste your money in other areas because you're not gonna get a return on your investment if you do it. But I know that because I've made the mistakes and spent thousands of dollars losing money to learn in those other arenas. So I think that's what's important is to understand how to represent your brand on each of the platforms and where your audience is going to be. Like for me right now, my number one social network is LinkedIn because I'm doing a lot of speaking and motivational speaking and blogging and article writing, and my audience is on LinkedIn.
And LinkedIn is sorry. Yeah, so LinkedIn is a great platform because LinkedIn is what Facebook was again. Those 2010.
Yeah.
It gives you that organic reach, and you're able to reach these people without paid ads and all the community guidelines type of stuff, taking your content down and stuff. So yeah, it's a great platform to be involved with right now. LinkedIn is a great way. Yeah.
So I think that's an example of just learning and migrating from and learning. I mean, it's disappointing just from an author or even a business person perspective. It's very disappointing to learn that your friends and family are not going to support you. It's really, that's the first lesson you need to learn as an entrepreneur is that you think that your friends and family are going to put money behind you, but they're not. They're going to watch, they're going to wait and see. They're some of the most critical of people trying to make it. Actually, there's jealousy involved there's apathy. So strangers are the ones who help you make it. The sooner you realize that, the sooner you will be more successful in your endeavors, because you can waste a lot of time spamming your friends and family on Facebook and to no avail. So that's another one I give you guys for free. Like, don't waste your time. Put the information out there, see who supports you, then move on to the broader network.
Yeah. Okay. Got it. So again, two questions that I wanted to ask you. And first of all, it's going to be question in the question. So it's kind of two questions. So what would your personal advice for the people, again, who are looking to get started business? Like what would be your one advice for those people and for the people who already have an existing business and they're looking to scale that?
So if you're looking to start a business, once again, I will go back to what I said earlier is investigate, ask yourself a series of questions. What am I good at? Take inventory. What am I good at? What do I love to do? And what can I be paid for? And what does the world need? So kind of take stock and inventory of, because in the intersection of those four questions will be an idea that you can actually start. I have a friend of mine who, I was kind of coaching her on these four questions, and we came up with a rather brilliant idea that came just from her. I can't give the idea out on camera now, but it's a game changer in terms of helping people have someone to listen to them when they're in their times of need. And it just came from an inventory of that person, what she's most passionate about, what she's good at, what the world needs, and what she could be paid for, and thinking about technology, how technology could enhance that. So I think those are four questions that are really important. Now, if you're in an existing business and looking to scale your business, the most important thing for you there is team. It's your ability to scale will only be as good as the people who are working along with you and their productivity and their engagement. And that's why you have to go from founder to leader. So get a coach, bring in consultants if you need to do that, build culture and build yourself in terms of your own knowledge of how to do these things. There's plenty of information out there. You don't have to recreate the wheel. But if you want to scale, don't take it for granted focus on your team, and also remember, check back in with the customer. So make sure that you are really in tune with customer needs, because just because you can scale doesn't mean you should scale in every instance. You just need to understand if the opportunity is really there, and what that opportunity is going to do, and how it's going to change your enterprise. Selling 10 books versus selling 10,000 is a very different proposition.
Mhm.
And the demands on you are very, very different when the scale changes. So just to be prepared, have you anticipated the challenges of scale? If we were successful, what would this mean for us from a positive side and from a challenges side? So try to anticipate and ask yourself those questions. And then what do I need? Because in that question, you'll find capability that you don't have, that you may need to anticipate and hire now, so you can be ready when you achieve your ideal scale.
Hmm. So that's a very good point, by the way, because I think for a lot of people, they're looking for that kind of golden answer, just like the one that I asked you, how do you scale and make your business successful? But what you're saying, like, do you even want to scale? Because that scaling process, it could not work out for your favor, like, and I somehow remember the Robert Kiyosaki story where he, tried to create this Velcro wallet business, and
Yeah,
he didn't had all the systems in place, and he just, he got so many sales he couldn't handle it, you know.
yeah,
So
yeah.
that
I
could
mean,
be
it's a good,
happening.
it's a good problem to have,
Yeah.
but you can crash and burn. I mean, think about Facebook and Facebook's ramp up, and think about how much pressure was on server capacity in the early days, right? Because you have to anticipate, your server needs, right? So I mean, like, it's amazing to me, like the smart people on YouTube or Facebook, who they had to anticipate how many millions or even billions of users will be using their platform, and have the server capacity, because Facebook's never crashed. It's never gone down. In 13 years, if you think about that, that is a miraculous
Hmm.
accomplishment. I think that's probably the number one accomplishment of the platform, is that not even for an hour or even 20 minutes have you ever logged into Facebook and couldn't get in because the server went down. That is an amazing accomplishment, and kudos to the technical team at Facebook, because that's the kind of thing that matters when you're scaling. Not how many users and what they're going to be doing and all the technical features. No, do you have the back end capacity to handle as much foot traffic as you want to handle? So that's the kind of thing you have to anticipate.
Again, great point. Great point. Love it. So again, Omar has, as I mentioned, 4 books, and again, a Gallup certified strength coach, business and leadership thought leader, motivational speaker, and an entrepreneur. And besides that, started his first business at 7. So I mean, it's insane. And you continue, to impact people and companies with your personal advice and the things that you're doing personally in your, business ventures. So it's awesome, and being on podcasts just like this one. So we really appreciate you coming on. And the last question that I have for you, again, besides doing all of that and more, what is your personal legacy that you're looking to leave behind you?
So my personal legacy is basically to change the corporate status quo of leadership, so that this toxic leadership culture, the idea of the boss, I want the boss nomenclature to be eradicated. I don't want anyone to aspire to be a boss 5 years from now. If I've been successful, people will not aspire to be bosses. People will aspire to be servant leaders. And the big difference is working for yourself and the ego versus serving and supporting others in pursuit of a bigger purpose, something bigger than yourself. And the more we work for things that are bigger than ourselves, the more value we create into the world. I think that we're moving away from shareholder capitalism to stakeholder capitalism, and the stakeholders that matter are employees, communities, customers, the environment, and shareholders. So if you're not impacting these 5 stakeholders, then you're not going to be a leader in the future. So I think that's why I'm helping people try to make the transition now, because the bar is raising, the lid for leadership is raising. And if you think that making profits is just going to be enough to keep you in the game 5 years from now, 10 years from now, it's not going to be enough. Customer expectations are getting higher than ever before. Government expectations, board expectations, investor expectations. So it's better to make the shift now versus find yourself in a situation 5 years from now and you don't have the skills and capabilities to impact the five main stakeholders that are really important for businesses today.
Exactly. And that's beautiful. And that's a great legacy to have and build, because leadership is everything. Like you talked about Facebook or any big company that we're going to take a look at, and they've been in business for many, many years, and they still are in the COVID times, and a lot of these technology companies. And like, if you're going to take a look at the core piece, is going to be the leadership, like Mark Zuckerberg, Jeff Bezos, like all of these people are leaders in their industries and in their companies. So make sure to go and grab the books of Omar. Of course, you're going to find all the links for the books down below, so it's easy for you to grab. Get in contact with Omar himself personally on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. All these links is also going to be down below. And one thing that I want to ask you guys and girls that are watching or listening to this episode, if you pass this episode along to the friend of yours, that friend who is looking to build a business or looking to scale potentially his existing business, I think that person is going to find a lot of great valuable tips, strategies, tools, motivation, inspiration. I mean, it's everything here for that person to start or continue to build his business successfully. Again, for you, Omar, I just want to say again, big thank you for coming over today and sharing your personal journey, wisdom, strategies. I mean, it's everything there. So really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. It's been a great conversation. Look forward to doing it again sometime.
Thank you. Thank you. So again, guys, make sure to pass this episode along. And as always, I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.